We all start off as nobodies when we first spawn into this game, and we all have to slug through the strenuous path of leveling and gearing, making friends, joining a guild, and figuring out what content best suits us. For me, it was Mythic Plus, but it took me a very, very long time to climb to where I am today in terms of networking, improving skills, seeking out the right resources, and so much more. I'm going to give a backstory first on how I got to where I am in Mythic Plus, and hopefully you can take away some of the things that I did and implement them yourself. At the end, I'm also going to give an actual list of things that you can do to escape the pug life, not just, oh, do more damage and be good, but actual actionable items that you can do today and moving forward. So I started playing WoW in 2011, a very long time ago, and for some reason I instantly chose Rogue and have stuck with it ever since. I was very, very casual. I was a Goldshire resident for about 7 years until finally I decided I want more from this game. And it wasn't until BFA Season 4 that I learned about Wikara's, Warcraft logs, simming, I mean, like all of it. And at this point, I could barely time a +10. I was just doing keys for fun, with friends, with guildies, but I knew I wanted to get better and that I really liked this content. And I was spending so many hours on WoW, I was like, I might as well try to get good. So, what I started doing is actually looking at rogues on my server who were better than me, not like top tier rogues, but definitely people I could learn from. And I would whisper them in game and I would ask them questions. I would try to befriend them so that I could start building a network somewhere of people that could help me grow. Meeting and adding good rogues allowed me to then meet some other good people, and I went from doing a +10 to a +20. And at the time, this was a milestone for me, and I'll never forget my first 20 key. It was a Waycrest Manor. I knew at the time that if I wanted to grow more and get better and make more friends and push higher keys, I would have to actively work at it, and it wasn't just gonna happen. And it was only in Shadowlands Season 1 that I started to understand my class to its full potential. And I decided that I needed to transfer from Alliance to Horde, knowing that I would have a much bigger selection of good people to play with and talk to and be friends with. Unfortunately, cross faction was not a thing back then. So I pugged and I pugged and I pugged, and it was a nightmare. I would always try to make sure to get in voice with people so that at least I could get a feel for who was a decent person as well as hopefully a good player. And from this, I started adding people that I liked. I eventually found a group of 4 who liked me and wanted to play with me, casually, of course, but still in an organized group, which was a massive step up from fully pugging. Unfortunately, that fell apart after a couple weeks. There was some weird drama, and I went back to pugging. But I had gained some IO from that short-lived group. Then one day, I was pugging. It was the Halls of Atonement, and I somehow got into this group that was much higher IO than me. And I knew I had to play really, really well. And I did. And we timed this 23 key, which at the time was just massive for me. It was so clean, I did so much damage, I was really proud of myself, and after the key, the healer messaged me, and he said he was really impressed, especially for my low IO. He added me. Now, I got really lucky with this person because he just happened to know everybody. And when I say everybody, I mean like he knew people who I still push with today and I'm friends with nowadays. So he himself connected me with those people, telling them if they need a rogue, they should hit me up. And from there, it just skyrocketed. So once you start getting invited into a group of people who are known, it becomes just one big chain of connection throughout Mythic Plus. Like it really just is one web of people who know each other somehow. And Season 2 Shadowlands was the first time I felt like I had good IO. I had a real push group. These were people who were kind of known in the community. It was great. And I remember hitting my first 3K. It was such a happy moment. I'll never forget it. It felt so hard earned and fun. And just like I had completed this journey of knowing nothing and nobody to finally improving exponentially. And that leads me to where I am today. With time, I met people I liked, I didn't like, people that liked me, that didn't like me, and now I finally feel like I have a solid network of friends and people that I can choose to play with, but it did take a long time and a lot of different steps and tools. And now that I've explained a summary of my WoW journey, I will give some tips on specific things that I did to improve and expand my network and things that you can do as well. These are really simple things, but you probably haven't heard or thought of some of them. First, you need to do your research, and this is kind of an obvious one. Don't just go into a key not knowing how to sim yourself, what gear you need, your rotation, the mechanics, and expect to grow in Mythic Plus. First, you have to figure out your damage and your mechanical abilities for each key, and then you can push for higher keys. And if you're looking for tips on each dungeon as a rogue specifically, in my guide below, I lay out how to handle every dungeon boss. So if you're starting from zero, you should check that out, and that might be helpful for you. Second is you never know who is in your key. This means you could be doing a plus 15 and some amazing player, high IO, is in there on their ult, and you could never know. It's important to always perform at a high competent level if, of course, your goal is to grow and climb in Mythic Plus, because you just never know who's going to add you. Just like my story, I pugged a key and then I got added, and from there, my network grew. And honestly, to this day, when I pug good people, I add them and I play with them and I reach out to them. So, I mean, you just never know. You got to always be playing well. And this goes into my third point is that you need to add people yourself. Don't wait for others to add you. And don't feel awkward adding other people, because the worst that can happen is that they just decline you and move on with their life. But if they do add you, then you have an excuse to reach out to them and play with them in the future. So just start playing consistently with at least one or two people, and you will start to learn about synergy and group dynamics, responsibilities, um, routing, and so much more. And once you start playing with these one or two people consistently, start thinking about what specific classes and roles you need to fill for your group. And what you can do, and what I have done and still do, is first of all, on your Radar.io page, in your description, say something like looking for a push group for Mythic Plus, and maybe you can write some stuff about yourself and your history and availability and whatever. And you can also mention that you have some people that play with you. And then you can go to whatever role you need. Let's say it's a tank and you're 3.1k IO. You go to people in your region who are around your score, or better yet, higher, and you literally just look for those who have their Discord or Battle.net listed, and you add them out of the blue. And then, if they add you back, you message them and tell them that you're looking to form a push group. And you suggest that all you do is a trial day together, see how things go, and see if there's synergy, if you like each other, if the person's actually good. And if they are, well, then you found somebody on Radar.io instead of sitting for an hour in LFG trying to find a tank. My next point is Discord communities. There's a lot of Mythic Plus communities out there where people put themselves out there with their Radar.io keys, they look for others to play with, and this can be a really good way to not sit in LFG once again all day, but actually form a group with 1 to 4 people. And I don't personally know of many of these, but I know of this one, and it's a pretty big one. And I'm also going to link the invitation below for it. But as you can see, there's sections from 0 to 9 keys. See, people are like looking for 1 to 4. There's 20 to 24 where people are just putting their Radar IO and very desperate to play with others. So, I mean, if you're also desperate to play with other people, you can just look here. Then there's 25 or higher. So things like this are a good place to start. Just really utilizing the Radar IO and Discord community tool to expand your network instead of just relying on what is available in the game itself. Now, something else that also relates to Discords and might be a hot take is that if you're really looking to improve your gameplay for keys specifically, I really recommend staying away from class Discords. This is especially true for rogues, aka the Ravenhold Discord. I'm not really sure about the others. But if you want to get good in Mythic Plus, you should join communities of people who actually play the game at the level that you want to play it at, instead of just being in a community that essentially is one big Wowhead page, which is what most class Discords are. You're really not going to find many people in there who play the game, um, and specifically keys. I think a lot of people who sit around in class Discords usually are raid loggers and just kind of play casually, and there's also just a lot of misinformation in there because any one of the thousands of people can answer your question incorrectly, and usually a mod won't step in to tell that person that they're wrong. It's just really like a clusterfuck in there. So you should join a community like mine or someone else's who actually does high keys, and from there you can ask questions to people directly like me about keys, about builds and damage and all of this, and you're not going to get some rando nobody person telling you the wrong information. Now, taking all of what I said into account, you have to understand what bracket of IO you're currently in and where you realistically are trying to get in the given current season, because that's going to determine what you need to focus on for the short future. For example, if you are between 0 and 2.5 KIO, you probably need to focus more on improving in key mechanics and damage, before really adding people and expanding your network. But you definitely can make friends and reach out to people. But I think if you're trying to get to 2.5, you need to really look inwards and improve upon your knowledge of keys and your class. Now, if you're 2.5 KIO trying to get to around 3 KIO, you probably know somewhat what you're doing at this point. You've done your research, you've got some friends you play with, so you should start looking to form consistent groups like I described previously, with maybe like 1 to 4 people. If you're 3 KIO trying to get to 3.4 or above, so this is like the highest keys, and you're in that awkward pugging high key phase, which really sucks. I think this is the worst part of pugging, is trying to pug high keys. Then I would recommend reaching out to people on Raider.io, trialing them, seeing if you like them as a person, and going from there. And again, joining as many Mythic Plus communities as you can. And at this point, you should also be studying players of your class and their keys, how they perform, where they put their damage, CCs. So look at VODs, watch streams. This is really helpful. Um, so you can see how people are timing keys. And if you're a rogue, then you should look at rogue streams and see exactly what the rogues are doing in any given part of the key. Okay, lastly, really just be a decent person. I mean, aside from being a good player, you need to be likable and friendly and funny and relatable. And at the end of the day, this is a community game. You can't solo the game, and you need to be personable. This is why I always tried to get in voice with pugs, because it's easier to be friendly in voice chat instead of in the game. And this will also up your chances at befriending someone good and expanding your network. I've known some people that make their way up in IO and then they're just a piece of shit and pretty much get shunned out of the community. Usually it's something racist or sexist or just generally really toxic and negative, all the bad stuff. Don't do that. And also be open to people's advice and tips, especially if they're better than you. Don't argue with someone when they have something to suggest. Just take it into account and internalize it, and react accordingly. But take what people say with a grain of salt. At the end of the day, this is a video game. Nothing really matters. It's all pixels. But however, I mean, these are real people that you're dealing with as well. So it's kind of like this strange situation of be fun, it's a game, but also be nice and be normal because these are people. So, yeah, that is it. I hope this helps. I really, really understand the struggle of pugging. I promise. I've been there. It's really shitty, but try these tips out and let me know in the comments or in my Discord or wherever how your Mythic Plus journey goes. Goodbye.